रूम की तरह हमारा ये रूम है, इसको मॉनिटर करो। आज हमारे पास रजिस्ट्रेशन 45 की हुई है जी। तो अभी मेरे ख्याल में हमारे पास 12 पार्टिसिपेंट्स हुए हैं, तो 5 मिनट और देख लेते हैं। 15 से 18 तक हो जाए तो इंशाल्लाह हम शुरू करें। मैं गाहे बगाहे ये अनाउंसमेंट करता रहता हूँ कि आप लोगों ने अपनी वीडियोस ऑन रखी हैं। जितने रजिस्टर्ड पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं जिन्होंने सर्टिफिकेट्स लेने हैं, आप लोगों ने अपनी वीडियो अपने ऑन रखनी है। ये पाकिस्तान जिम काउंसिल की रिक्वायरमेंट है। सर्टिफिकेट लेने के लिए उन्होंने बड़ी सख्ती से ये कदम लगाई हुई है कि वीडियो आपने ऑन रखनी है। और उनका एक नुमाइंदा भी यहाँ पे मॉनिटर करता है गाहे बगाहे। तो काइंडली, अब जब मैं फिर बीच में अगर अनाउंसमेंट करूंगा तो स्पीकर डिस्टर्ब होते हैं और टाइम भी ज़ाया होता है। तो ये भी फॉर्मली शुरू करने से पहले इंशाल्लाह अब मैं अनाउंसमेंट करता रहूंगा, तो मुझे काइंडली तकलीफ ना दीजिएगा बीच में कहीं, ताकि स्पीकर डिस्टर्ब, मैं तो आप जितनी दफ़ा कहेंगे अनाउंसमेंट करता रहूंगा लेकिन स्पीकर डिस्टर्ब होते हैं। तो प्लीज़ इस चीज़ का ख्याल रखें कि आपने अपना कैमरा ऑन रखना है। अस्सलाम वालेकुम मियां साहब, थैंक यू सर फॉर कमिंग। सादिया इधर है कि उधर है? मेरी आवाज़ आ रही थी तुम्हें? तुम तो जूम पे हो ना, ताकि देखें जूम पे ट्रांसमिशन ठीक जा रही है कि नहीं। जूम को तो तुम मॉनिटर करो ना। नेगेटिव नहीं कर रहे हो, पीछे बैठ जाओ बेशक, पीछे बैठ जाओ तायका के साथ ही पीछे। 2 बज के जी 3 मिनट हो गए हैं और हमारे पास 14 पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं। मैंने 5 मिनट की इजाज़त दी हुई है आप लोगों से, तो इंशाल्लाह 2:05 पे हम शुरू कर देंगे। नहीं, आप दो पाँच से शुरू करते हैं, 1 मिनट रह गया। मैं Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A warm welcome to all of you who have joined us this afternoon for the technical lecture being delivered on the platform of Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers. Uh, Today's speaker, as you know, is Dr. Ali Rizwan, who is a very experienced professor and a researcher. Just a minute, we are having a technical issue. Please bear with me. ये आवाज कहाँ से आ रही थी? नहीं, मैं मुझे अपना फीडबैक वापस आ रहा है। हाँ, अभी आया था। ठीक है जी, again a very warm welcome to all of you. It's my privilege to welcome you here from the platform of Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers. Today we have a lecture being delivered by Professor Dr. Ali Rizwan, who is a very experienced professor, engineer, and a researcher. First, I will tell you the rules of this webinar. As I have been insisting in every technical lecture that kindly keep your video cam on. We have to see your face. This is the requirement of Pakistan Engineering Council for those who have officially registered for this technical lecture and who aspire to get certificate for this of this lecture. That is the credit point. Second, our speaker would be more comfortable if you ask the questions as he proceeds with his slides. Slide by slide, he prefers that you ask the questions. So during the lecture, the best way to ask the question is by writing the text. We can't allow asking questions through the microphone. It will cause some coordination problem and some handling management problem. So kindly ask your questions through the text, and I will read the question to the speaker, and then he will answer it. I hope it is clear. And once he finishes the lecture, then after that, you can ask the questions through your microphone. And that would be a 20 to 25 minutes question answer session. Now, a very brief introduction of Dr. Sahab, and then he will proceed with his lecture. So, Dr. Ali Rizwan did his undergrads from UET Lahore in 1976. Then he proceeded to University of Surrey, England, from where he got his master's degree in 1981. And after that, he proceeded to Freiburg, Germany, from where he got his PhD degree in October 2006. Then he continued in University of Freiburg, Germany, and he did some postdoctorate research work there. And his thesis and his topic was high early strength self-compacting grout system. So this was regarding his education. He has plenty of administrative experience also. He is now a professor of civil engineering in National University of Computer and Engineering Sciences. NUCS PAST is the abbreviation. Then before that, he was chairman, civil engineering department and dean faculty, engineering and technology at Superior University Lahore. He also served in NUST as head of structural engineering department, and he was a director planning and development in UET Lahore. He was the vice president of Pakistan Engineering Congress from 1993 to 2010. Then he was also a convener of accreditation committee of Pakistan Engineering Council. Now, he has been managing and handling foreign funded research works. He has a special love for research projects, and he spends a lot of time in doing research work. He has so far on the projects he has done for based on foreign funding is one, self-compacting pastes, two is a super absorbent polymers, three, carbon dioxide reduced concretes, and the fourth research topic is development of high strength concrete in Pakistan. He is the member of Pakistan Engineering Council. He's the member of IEP. He represents himself in 3 committees of ACI. He's the member of ACI also. He has enormous publications to his credit. 20 publications to his credit. He was the author and co-author of the publications, which were peer reviewed and have been already printed internationally in the journals. Then he has, to his credit, peer-reviewed papers which have been read in conferences. They tally to about 88. Now his 8 papers are ready, which will be shortly published in the journals. And all these numbers which I've told you, in some he is the sole author and in some he is the co-author. He has, to his credit, organizing conferences also. So far he has organized 13 conferences, technical conferences. And he's the author of 2 books. One book has been published in 3 editions. And one edition has been published. So it was really difficult for me to summarize his introduction, but since we have a limited time here, so I hope I have informed you about his introduction adequately. And if you have any further questions regarding his introduction, you can contact him directly, or you can ask the questions at the end of the lecture. Ridwan Saab, Dr. Saab, now the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Can you see the slides, please?
Not yet. You have to open, share the screen. Press the share screen button and then the slides will be displayed. Yes, now we can see it. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa illam taghfir lana wa tarhamna lanakunanna min al-khasirin. ला इलाहा इल्ला अंता सुब्हानका इन्नी कुन्तु मिनज़ ज़ालिमीन। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला सय्यिदिना मुहम्मद व अला आलि सय्यिदिना मुहम्मद व बारिक वसल्लम। I'm really grateful to Engineer Tahir Sultan Sahib for a very detailed introduction and giving me an opportunity to address fellow engineers. Maybe some of the slides will help in the broadening of the understanding of performance of civil engineering structures. So the title of my talk today is On-Site Health Assessment of Structures. So the first question will arise that when on-site health monitoring or performance monitoring is required, number one, when you suspect structural safety and performance, and then it is a must to carry out some tests and monitor or assess the structural health, whether it is serviceable or not, or it will give the performance as intended by the designers. So ACI code is basically a good document, but it is not legally adopted through Act of Parliament in Pakistan. Its legal status is that it's a good document to be followed. And in fact, we teach all the reinforced concrete and other structures based on ACI code. But if somebody challenges its legality, the actual position is that it has to be adopted legally. Having said that, even in America, there are various states which have maybe ACI 318 or some other codes, and maybe some states do not work on that. The ACI code in chapter 27 states that where possible and appropriate, the result of load tests, because most of the time it is the load test which gives us some idea about the safety, should be supported by the analysis. But in case of some deteriorated structures, it may be difficult to carry out analysis, because in analysis you have to give some inputs regarding the material strengths and the boundary conditions of structure, which may not be very clear. So the effort should be made so that we do not run into this problem. But even then, I have observed that sometimes even very good designed structures, they run into problems. And especially with reference to Pakistan, we will see different, very strange reasons for the structural performance, which is not up to the mark. So anybody having, I hope the first slide is clear. And what is the role of ACI code? Here I want to elucidate the role of ACI code. This is written on the first or second page of ACI code, that all ACI committee documents, because code is written by ACI committee 318. I am a member of 3 other committees, 232, 234, and 237. So all committee documents are intended for use of individuals who are competent to evaluate the significance and limitation of its content and recommendations, and who will accept responsibility for the application of material it contains. I mean, ACI code or any other code or any other committee documents do not accept any responsibility which may arise due to the use of its contents. Individuals who use this publication in any way assume all the risk and accept total responsibility of the application and use of this information. So when you use ACA code, you cannot, in fact, be free of the responsibility. And actually, engineer in charge is the ultimate responsible, and he can violate ACA code if he wants, but he is the sole responsible figure as far as the safety and the performance is concerned. Now, we have got different types of engineers, like site engineers, design engineers, and so many others. So it's a kind of teamwork which is responsible for different structural subcomponents. Some case studies have been done internationally, and they have improved tremendously the knowledge of understanding, and they have been the source of the revision of the code at times. So case studies are very useful, but in fact, unfortunately, in Pakistan, if some structural failure happens, and if it's a government structure, nobody wants that it should be studied and documented for the sake of knowledge. But the rubble and everything, it is removed, and engineers are not allowed to go to the site. I had a personal experience of requesting one Peace Test Bridge near Jhelum. It got collapsed, so I consulted the chief engineer who was my student. He said, "Sir, all the rubbish and other materials has been taken away." So I said that we wanted to study the structural failure. Maybe we could find out some reason, and maybe if you want, we can submit some report. But unfortunately, the access was denied. But in the foreign countries, if some structural collapse or behavior is not up to the mark, they set up committees, sometimes joint committees of ASCE and ACI, so that to know what has been the exact cause of the collapse of the structure. And it has resulted in the better understanding of structural response. So case studies are really very important to study. You can see anything written in the documents, but case studies are usually better to understand the structural performance on site. Now we usually learn from structural failures and poor performances. I give you one of the international case study. It is a case of collapse of US Air Force warehouse in Ohio, and this happened in August 1955. So the collapse occurred on 17th August 1955, and what the Americans did was to formulate a joint committee of ACI, American Concrete Institute, and American Society of Civil Engineers, and it was named as Committee 548. And ultimately what they established was that the shear strength of concrete was wrongly taken at around 100 psi, which was dropped later to 50 psi. Normally, when we consider the nominal shear capacity, Vn of of any beam or any flexure element, then it is around 2 under root FC prime BWD, something like that. So normally, previous to this occasion, no shear reinforcement was actually required in regions where VU was less than VN. But upon this failure, now we design the shear reinforcement and provide shear reinforcement when VU exceeds VN by 2, so which is around 50 psi. So, if there is some structural failure, the engineers should be encouraged to go there, collect data, and share the data with their counterparts and the friends, so that it could be published for the interest of the engineering community and the public at large, so that such kind of failures do not happen. But we should not blanket such accidents, So this is very, some faults happen. This is a human to make some mistakes. So the mistakes are studied or should be studied, and then the solution should be sought. Now, what is the need for health assessment and repairs of structures? If a structure shows inadequate structural performance in terms of cracking, shows huge sagging and spalling, or sometimes it vibrates, then it needs on-site or in-situ health assessment and possibly strengthening thereafter. Reasons for such a response can be many. For example, inadequate analysis or assumptions, or inadequate design for a particular structure at a particular location. Something goes wrong, improper execution. And in Pakistan, especially, maybe it's not possible in other countries, subletting the structure to a lower category contractor, which we call it runaway of the main contractor. That has also been that some structural poor performance have been attributed, and I will show you some slides on that. Then structural damage due to fire can occur, and then the client or some responsible agency can approach the individuals to investigate whether it is possible to use the structure anymore, or it needs demolition. The other reason can be inadequate materials and conceptual mistakes in old buildings. Inadequate material means improper type of steel reinforcement, improper concrete, or improper execution, everything. Corrosion of steel is a very big problem, and it also induces problems touching the area of durability. And sometimes poor concrete is also a source of corrosion, cracking, segregation. Early formwork removal can also induce some issues related with structural health assessment and require repairs. And sometimes localized repairs of damaged structures need to be done on emergency basis. For example, I can give you some example. If you are using some road structure, transportation structure, and it needs some repair, some damage occurs. So it has to be repaired very, very immediately. You cannot close it for 28 days and then wait. Similarly, if something like runway pavement is damaged, so we cannot close the airport or runways for 28 days. So it has to be done in a very, very short time. So we should be all ready and we should have the requisite technique and expertise and materials so that this could be done. This slide I have taken from American Archives, Mortar Restoration of American Terracotta Archives. So in this case, you will see that the reinforcement is continuous, but this side is probably not there. And this is after repairs. You can see that this crack, the same segment which was there, it has been provided again, and it has been connected together with the self-consolidating, maybe mortar using epoxies or something like that. So the case, the response of this structure was studied and then the repair was done. If you could see, there is some small cracking over here also. Now in Pakistan, I have done different case histories. Number one, the basement columns of LDA Plaza located at Jerton Road, Lahore. When I graduated in 1976 and joined the department as a lecturer, I was a team member along with senior professors to assess the response of basement columns. Then in the second case history, I include the fire damage to Space Shopping Center, Gulbarg, Lahore. UET Lahore was approached to perform the load testing and recommend whether it needs demolition or it needs repairs and strengthening. Later on, engineer Rizwan Mirza and Associates, they did the restoration works. We performed the load tests and took out some samples from the members which are needed for any analysis. Then there was a case in the Lahore Supreme Court Registry Branch which was studied. Then Standard Chartered Bank at Shara Quaid-e-Azam, Lahore, its case was studied. Basically, this was British Council Library. When we were students at Government College Lahore in 1967 to 1969 to 1971. Then at Tavi Bridge near Saidpur Patan, this is near Pakistan-India border. This is a pre-stressed post-tensioned bridge. Its response was studied, and at that time I was the head of the department at NUST. The other case studies which is included is Employees Block number 6, Postal Colony, G86 Islamabad. Then I had the chance to investigate a tall building at Constitution Avenue. I'm sorry for the spelling, Constitution Avenue in Islamabad. Because of the contract arrangement, we were not required to disclose its exact name or location. So that is why I am using a generalized word. So this case histories will be taken. Now, the routine method of on-site or in-situ health assessment usually include site inspection, and from site inspection you get reasonable information regarding the temperature in case of fire, or the magnitude of the cracking, magnitude of the sagging or spalling. These have to be measured. So all these are included in site inspection. The purpose is to make the path clear regarding the nature of problem with the structure. And we, in fact, locate the signs of distress. Signs of distress in a structure can be cracking, spalling, and things like that, or melting of certain attachments. Then we can finalize the methodology, that what test and what we are going to do regarding the on-site health assessment. And then we can carry out some tests which may include non-destructive testing, or sometimes destructive testing also, or some samples can be taken out from the structure which can be later on tested in the lab. And then based on their results, we can interpret the results and we can conclude regarding rehabilitation strategies, which strategy can be applied. If we think that the rehabilitation is not the real answer, then we may recommend that the structure may be demolished in the overall public interest. So these are usually the steps to gather data and to fix your orientation, what to do with this structure. I move on to the next slide. Actually, in 1976, we did this assessment of strength of basement column of LDA Plaza. Actually, we took several photographs, but actually those photographs were not available with us anymore now, because it has about 40 years plus time. And then a colleague of mine went there maybe 5-6 years before and sketched this building. Actually, the question at that time was that whether the columns of this building have obtained the required strength, which was, I think, around 6,000 PSI. And 6,000 PSI concrete at that time was quite a high strength concrete. Even now, even ASA code says that if FC prime is more than 6,000 PSI, it should be classified as high strength concrete. But, and then at that time, our methodology was that we selected columns on various grids, identified them on plan, and we tested them. The tests which were performed included the non-destructive tests and Schmidt-Hammer readings. And ultimately what we did was that normally Schmidt-Hammer readings were taken at the top of the column, maybe at the middle and at the bottom. So, and the pulse velocities were also taken at these 3 locations to investigate whether there is some segregation or not. And to your knowledge, if you suspect segregation is in a finished column. These tests are very useful. If there is a segregation, then there will be a tendency that the coarse aggregates, which are heavier, they would be traveling towards the base when the concrete is fresh, before skeleton formation. And the rebound hammer, which gives you the surface strength, though it has some limitations, but then you can take the cores out, test them, and then you can establish a kind of relationship, the link between the core tests with Schmidt hammer test and pulse velocity tests. So it is a very common, technique to establish really what happened. So the crack widths on the columns were also noticed, and they were measured also with optical instrument, and they were recorded. Finally, the conclusion was that the building has almost attained the desired strength. So after getting the report, the remaining structure was built, which you see these days today as LDA Plaza. Unfortunately, this was gutted more than once since it's coming into service due to various reasons, which you people might know better than me. This is the position of the basement columns as they look now. Then this is the picture taken from the website, I think Sama Television, showing the Space Shopping Center, Gulbarg, under fire. And on the right, you can see the position of the structure after the rehabilitation, which was done by Rizwan Mirza Consulting Engineers. So I was involved in this fire. I think 4 or 5 people died. Then in the bottom of this slide, you can see 4th floor of the Gulbarg Shopping Plaza building suddenly caught fire. Sama Television reported Friday. Fire brigade and other rescue teams reached the same site and tried to extinguish the fire. Actually, they failed because ultimately it was the PIA fire extinguishers which were employed, and they could get hold of this. And we tried to find the fire hydrants, but many were not functional. The reports told that the whole 4th floor is destroyed and other floors are also getting damaged as the fire spread out. The building has been evacuated. Fire has not been completely. So this is the news from the Sama Television archives or recordings. But we visited the site after 3 or 4 days of extinguishing of fire. But we could see slight smoke coming out at some locations also. So first of all, we asked them to clear the debris. There were a lot of fire loads like cotton cloths and other vegetable oils and all that, some cans or all those have to be removed so that we could inspect these structures. So when we inspected this structure, we noticed various things. First of all, we started the inspection from the basement of the floor of the structure, and then ground floor, then second floor, then third floor, then fourth floor, something like that. And the client wanted, I am emphasizing, the client wanted that its load testing be done. This was, in fact, a structure which was insured and which was owned by, I think, Salman Taseer of People's Party. And the owner interest was put on the exit list till the real cause or the compensations are paid to the affectees. So we saw very horrible scenes near the sites. The people were weeping, and once we asked them, why are you weeping? So they said that we know what type of report you will give. Because if you gave the report that this structure is to be demolished, then all our investment is gone. What they normally do is, in case of insured structure, the insurance is based on the main, according to the main drawings. If you have got a shop of, let's say 20 by 20, and then it was afterward divided into maybe 4 shops of 10 by 10, then the main owner of 20 by 20 would get the compensation. And those 4 shops of 10 by 10, those people will get nothing. Actually, those are the people who are the real affectees, because they have to give huge money as in token money, as pagdi, what they call it in Urdu. And then they give a lot of rent daily on the monthly basis. So we assured them that we will do whatever is right. The right will be set right. And although the civil engineer of the owner carried out, he was my student, and I told him that visibly the floors were quite sagging. I mean, the concrete was divided into the panels, and the crack widths were more than the permissible. And if you measure the central deflection of different slab panels, it was more than the allowed system. So I said that as a civil engineer, you can interpret this to be as a failed structure in serviceability. Why you want to get the load testing done? He said, sir, we want to get the load testing done. So I said, okay, if you are interested, we can do the load testing. So we performed the load testing. The time was a constraint. We selected the different panels which are to be loaded considering the inference line diagram requirements, the areas which can be loaded for the maximum deflections. But to our utter surprise, and this is a case of interpretation also. In my experience, if you load test a very severely damaged structure, which visibly has failed in serviceability, if you perform load test, you will get the required recovery with relative to the sagged position. However, if you base the assessment according to original straight position, it has already failed before the test. So I recommend that the load testing in such a heavily damaged structure does not give some useful information and should not be performed actually. Or if at all it has to be performed, then the datum should be considered. Datum should not be the collapse position, and the recovery with respect to collapse position might declare it serviceable, although it is visibly unserviceable. So later on, we took some core samples from slab elements. And first of all, I tell you for your experience, we examined the color of concrete at various locations. At various locations, the color of concrete differed. At some locations, the color of concrete was simply, kind of black, which indicated that huge fire load has stuck with that. At some locations, it was pink. If you see a pink color, then you can assume that the hydroxyl group of concrete has left the concrete, and the remaining are the voids. Hydroxyl group means the calcium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, and sodium hydroxide, and something like that. Because calcium hydroxide is the main product of hydration of concrete. So the first thing you should do is to inspect the concrete color. If it is pink, then the fire temperature could be in the range of 450 to 550 degrees centigrade. Because that is the usual temperature at which the calcification occurs when the carbon dioxide is removed. Okay. Then if you see a white color, white and pitting kind of concrete, so that usually shows that the calcification has occurred. It means that the calcium carbon dioxide has left the main structure of concrete. This happens usually at a temperature of around 950 to 1050 degrees centigrade, based on my experience. So at that time, you can imagine that such huge fire intensity occurred. And then you can see the attachments and other things, okay? And we took out the samples of concrete and reinforcement. To our utter surprise, and interestingly, at that time, the reinforcement was grade 60 cold worked steel. The cold worked steel has original grade 40 steel, but after cold working, it attains a grade of 60 grade. But if the temperature exceeds 400 degrees centigrade, the grade of steel drops from 60 to original 40 billet grade. So that again reduces the margin of safety. But I think based on our report, Engineer Rizwan Mirza took a very bold decision. I must say that it was a bold decision to go for restoration of this structure. And he used the jacketing technique. Jacketing is usually a technique when you provide more size of the column around the existing size and the beams, and you go for the slab strengthening also. So it was a bold decision, I think a very good engineering decision. I admire Rizwan Mirza, my friend and author in some of the papers with me. So he did the restoration work, and then the factories which formed a kind of association, they were all satisfied. If we had recommended the demolition of the structure, then, I mean, those factories could have been, suffered very badly. And to the best of my knowledge, it was 50-50. I mean, it could be either demolished or rehabilitated. That is why I call it to be a very good engineering judgment by Rizwan Mirza, who took a bold decision of restoration of this structure. He restored it, and now if you visit the Place Shopping Center, you will never see even an iota of the signs pertaining to fire. This is the Supreme Court Lahore registry now. But, a case was reported to UET Lahore Civil Engineering Department. And the background was that a Supreme Court judge was hearing a case when suddenly a blob of concrete, a huge blob measuring about 1 feet by 2 feet, fell in front of him. And fortunately, no life was lost, but he ordered the inquiry, suspended the responsible PWD engineers. Then in the inquiry, he ordered to go for the root cause. What happened? Why the block of concrete fell down? So when we saw reached there, we saw it was a plain high-grade steel and very poor concrete microstructure. When the concrete microstructure is very poor, you will see sagging or whatever, some honeycombing at some locations. Then the CO2 in the environment can reach the pore solution, and then corrosion can start. So we estimated the thickness of the corrosion also, and that was the reason of this structural failure, corrosion. You will be surprised that this occurred in Punjab. Now you can imagine what will happen due to corrosion in our coastal areas, in Karachi areas, where the structures and even car floors, they are not able to sustain 5-7 years of life. So normally people hesitate to buy second-hand cars from Sindh and Karachi. So we observed all the requisite steps. We measured crack widths, everything. But, there was no appreciable deflection. Some cracks were there. And when we did some laser testing, and we could sketch the reinforcement pattern. The reinforcement pattern looked okay. It was, I think, 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch diameter plain steel. So it showed that this building was quite old and deformed steel was not available. So the old buildings also use this cold twisted steel sometimes, but this building never used a cold worked steel, but used a high grade, maybe high carbon steel. But the main reason of that localized failure was corrosion. The conditions elsewhere were also not satisfactory because, you know, the crack lines could be seen along the reinforcement lines. So this was the second case which came to our notice. Now this is the Standard Chartered building on the Mall Road, Lahore. In the picture, above picture is the front view, which you can see even now. And this is the side view. So, though at that time, it was Standard Chartered building, but way back during 1970, it was British Council Library. And we used to go there and read engineering books, and some non-engineering books also. So the client came to UET Lahore and told us a very, very strange problem. The building had 4 floors. I said, what is the problem? He told us that the second floor of the building vibrates when a Volvo bus comes by. I think, okay. I said, okay, very strange. Why the other floors are not vibrating? Because second floor is not very flexible. I think the most flexible floor would be the topmost floor. But we started investigations and we were looking for the initial signs of distress like cracking and sagging. It was concealed. The original story height was around 15 feet or so. But when Standard Chartered acquired it, then due to HAB's air conditioning, they had to reduce the ceiling height. So false ceiling was there. So when we moved about, we could see nothing. About 6 to 7 hours were gone and we were just taking notes uttered by the experiences of the personnel of Standard Chartered. Then I decided to look into the slab system. So I asked them to remove the false ceiling. So once the false ceiling was removed, then the reason for vibration became very clear. I could see a RBC floor, reinforced brick masonry floor, reinforced brick concrete. It was old fashioned that 2 bricks were placed and then around that brick pair, the reinforcement would run and concrete would also be placed. And then that slab was rested on steel beams of, I think, 6 inches depth wide flank sections. And the span of continuous one-way slab system of RBVC was around 15 feet, which is quite a huge considering that it had bricks in that. So we tried to tell the clients that this is probably due to corrosion and probably due to the inadequate lateral bracing of the system. And I told them not to go for the load test, but they said, okay, we will go for the load test. And they put another condition that because Standard Chartered Bank belongs to UK, he said that you have to defend the reports before our engineers from UK. I said, okay, we will defend. So what I did initially was, I told them to select the heaviest man in their organization and ask him to run in the corridor of the second floor. Because at other floors, you know, the story height was much less. So its unbraced length of the column was quite high. And the span of the one-way continuous brick reinforced slab was quite high. And corrosion was again a problem. So that man ran on the top side of the slab. And again, that story started vibrating. I said, now you can see there's no Volvo bus. So, okay, they said, okay, we are convinced that it is not due to Volvo bus, but please give us the reasons in a detailed report. I said, okay. Then we performed usual routine tests, we formed relationship between the core strength, pulse velocity strength, and then the Smith-Hammond test. We took out the samples of steel, and samples of steel were tested in tension. They had satisfactory strength and elongations, but they were sent to the metallurgical department of UET Lahore. There, we required them to measure the corrosion or degree of corrosion. At that time, UET Lahore did not have this electrical resistivity or digital half cell, which we use normally these days to ascertain the corrosion. So their professor, Faisal Hassan, who acted as Vice Chancellor of UET Lahore and the Vice Chancellor of some other university in Lahore, he is quite expert in the failure analysis, especially the Sui gas lines in Quetta. So he was approached. Based on his expertise, he sent some samples to Manchester University and the corrosion was confirmed. And then we defended our report with the UK engineers. And because I was also qualified from UK, my master's degree from Surrey University was sufficient for them to get convinced. But when we told them that some of the tests were also done in the UK to cross-check, and then they agreed with our results and accepted. After that, we were paid. So this was the brief story of a very strange complaint of structural response by the client. Now this is the post-tension bridge. River Tavi, you can see the River Tavi, we tested them in freezing temperatures nearing 0 degrees centigrade or maybe 2 or 3 degrees centigrade in December, January, and it took us a lot of problems. We had to arrange loads. We had to erect the arrangements for fixing our instrumentations and taking the responses due to static loads as well as due to when the load is moving. So you can see on this slide that this truck load weighing, carrying about a test load of 70,000 kilograms on a 7-wheel trailer is moving on the deck, and under the bridge, one or two of my students who were doing a master's degree with me, they were from Army, and they were taking the readings under that. You can see one of the person, very dangerous kind of testing. So ultimately, when we completed this bridge, a strange story came up. First 2 or 3 spans in that portion were quite okay, but rest of the spans had a lot of problems. So we were very surprised that why some portion of the structure is behaving satisfactorily and other portion is behaving not satisfactorily. So I asked them that who carried out this construction, because and give us the data. If it is post-tensioned, what was the force in the tendons, and what was the grade of concrete and other requisites. But they said that we don't have any data. I said, okay. But we drilled some cores in the deck slabs also. And we took some readings on these bridge piers also. And here in the diaphragms, you can see the poor quality near one of the apartments on this side. And the approach road was also not, very well. So it will impart dynamic loads. The problem was then when even a tractor trolley would move across the bridge will vibrate, especially these segments. And this is near the border. In case of, God forbid, war with India, then this bridge will be of vital importance. So maybe some tanks and heavy armory needs to be moved. So we assessed that. We assumed some values of the initial pre-stressing force. We assumed some pre-stressing loss according to the codes, or as suggested by Professor T.Y. Lin or other authors. Then we came to know that after constructing initial 2 segments, the main contractor subletted the work to a lower category contractor and took the money for the entire work in connivance with the National Highway Engineer, CNW engineers. And then he ran to Canada and assumed Canadian nationality. And then it was not possible for the department, CNW department, to bring him to Pakistan. Actually, in this case, several CNW engineers, they got suspended, or they contributed, in fact, from their pockets to construct the remaining bridge, because it was a post-tensioned bridge. Post-tensioning or pre-stressing is usually a specialized technique. So the contractor must be very expert. So that subletted contractor of a lower category was not that capable. So he made several mistakes. When we examined the the lateral reinforcements connecting the bridge decks, they were also found not up to the mark. The overall assessment you can sum up in these words. The quality of concrete poured was not satisfactory. you should remember that in pre-stressed concrete, FC prime should not be less than 5 KSI or 5,000 PSI. Then localized loss of pre-stress was also visible because there was loss of bond between concrete and the pre-stress reinforcement. The girders were relatively shallower and were placed at larger spacing. And there were no shear keys. Out of alignment diaphragms, caved in deck slabs, all made the bridge in question inadequate. But this resulted due to subletting of the contract to a lower category contractor. The main contractor ran away. We gave these recommendations. Both sides of the deck slabs must be immediately treated, because after treatment, we expected that this response will improve slightly. Routine smooth wearing surface may be provided to reduce impact. The bridge can, however, be put to use by permitting one-way vehicular traffic only after doing the needful required work. All surfaces of the bridge components must be immediately sealed with polymers under competent supervision. All exposed steel reinforcement must be protected immediately. The expansion joints may be treated to reduce impact of wheel loads. Approach slabs should be reconstructed to provide smooth vehicular entry onto the bridge. The cracks appeared in the girder and the diaphragm should be filled with suitable epoxies to prevent further corrosion. External strengthening options like external pre-stressing may be considered for rehabilitating the girders. Use of fiber cloth was also recommended. The designer must consider the provision of shear keys for better stability. So this was our report. We remained there for about 7 days and then made calculations and material testing results. So the report was submitted after about 2 months. I was there at NUST, and then we had all the techniques or all the apparatus. We could measure the corrosion by using digital half cells or electrical resistivity meters. So there was no problem like that. So this was the unique problem arising out of the subletting of the project. Design observations. We made some design observations also. The pre-stressing protocols and routine concrete quality assurance test records could not be provided in addition to design calculations and modeling data file. The following observations were made after seeing the drawings. Design web thickness of 7 inches looks less. Depth of pre-stressed girder looks shallow, and lateral girder spacing looks relatively large. No shear keys were provided. It seems that composite action between girder and the deck slab was not taken into design, and horizontal shears between deck and girder have not been accounted for. Then we took another project. It also came to NUST. Pakistan Post approached us, and they were constructing a colony, a 6-story colony for the employees of Post Department in Sector G8 of Islamabad. When investigated, it was again a case of poor workmanship resulting out of project subletting to a lower category a category contractor. So our job was to see the adequacy of structural design, perform NDT, and make recommendations after base was ready. The structural design seemed adequate, while poor concrete quality, execution, and other discrepancies like poor construction practices and improper material use and handling was the main cause of existing condition of the constructed portion of the building. I think I will show you some more slides. You can see, for example, on this slide, you can visibly see that reinforcement is seen, huge degree of honeycombing, resulting in maybe corrosion. Again, you could see some cracks here. This is some kind of, they made some temporary repairs so that some cracking was not visible to us. Some patches were seen like this, And then under the deck, you can see, this is again the quality. You can see the naked reinforcement. You can see the corrosion visibly. And you can see this honeycombing. And as a material expert, you can see that the mix was not okay, its consolidation was not okay. The paste content was less, so that you will have more of aggregate, and aggregate size was also quite high. The higher size of aggregates also usually results in lower strength of concrete. You can see the column reinforcement cages, and we can measure the corrosion on that. We did this also. And then some of the portion, you can see the reinforcement of the slab, and the contractor ran away, leaving the job. So it becomes difficult to repair. So we took some 4 by 8 inches cores. Please remember that 4 by 8 cores give higher strength than 6 by 12 cores. Although they are allowed by ACI and ASTM, that for 4 by 8 inches cores, you have to test at least 3 cores or 3 cylinders at one time. And for 6 by 12, you have to test at least 2 at one edge. So in the foundation, you can see the average stress of concrete, 2,653, 1,300 PSI. If you divide this by a factor of 1.2, if you divide this by 1.2, then the minimum structural concrete should have a strength of 2,500 PSI, according to ACI code reference number this, every 28 days. So it was really a poor quality concrete and huge honeycombing and corrosion. So now the 6 inches FC prime will be even less if you divide this by 1.2 or 1.2. Again, this will become a non-structural concrete. Then we measured possible corrosion rates by electrical resistivity tests. Electrical resistivity in kilo ohms centimeter, the readings are this, and the corresponding degrees of corrosion rates somewhere are high, very high, high, very high, insignificant, very high. So a combined class of corrosion resulting out of lower concrete grade. So the recommendation was to demolish the existing placement and reconstruct for the in the larger interest and safety of the people. So the project was demolished. Then another case of high-rise structure in Islamabad, you can see these beams were, quite huge. They were projecting beyond the slab by 9 inches. And if we consider 9 inches slab thickness, the overall beam depth will be 18 inches, and this lateral dimension was around 5 feet. Okay, this girder column to column spacing was around 35 feet in both the directions. And you can see the poor quality of concrete and sometimes the bearing inadequate expansion joint. And then you can see combined cracking and seepage works in lower panel. Crack and seepage you can see over here. Then what they had done after that, they put huge loads, localized loads on the site. And again, this was a case of a runaway contractor. The contractor was Chinese contractor, but I think in the international projects, usually some guarantee money has to be deposited. So I think they never made any profit, but they were in loss and they ran away, but left behind a project which was difficult to reconstruct. The top slab shows construction loads on it. Ponding is also visible. It rained a night before and ponding of water was seen also at various locations. Assessment for high-rise building. The term recovery should be based on the total deflection because the code seems to assume only a slightly deflected position as datum in the interpretation of recovery. In other words, the test does not explicitly mention its application and the interpretation of data pertaining to a significantly cracked and deflected panel before the load test. These same were my comments in case of Pace Shopping Center. In addition to recovery requirement, ACA Code Commentary, Article 20.5 acceptance criteria states that a general acceptance criterion for the behavior of structure under test load is that it does not show evidence of failure. Evidence of failure includes cracking, spalling, or deflection of such magnitude and extent that the observed result is obviously excessive and incompatible with the safety requirements of the structure. So these are the, after examining the building code requirements for structural con, ACA 31814, chapter 27, and these are articles following is stated. The existing notions conceived by field or practicing engineers that even damaged structures showing excessive deflections, excessive cracking of concrete, and spalling, if show desired recovery is serviceable, is wrong. Actually, before test, it has failed in serviceability. Structures failed in serviceability should not be subjected to load tests. And then we had some references. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. And I am thankful to your kind attention. And I will be happy to answer if you have any questions, please. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for your such a detailed, informative lecture. I hope everyone enjoyed this lecture very much as I did. And I would like to thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you are a very busy person, and for giving this time to Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers and for the sake of these young engineers. So, gentlemen, if anybody has any question, kindly raise your hand and come to the mic, and you can ask. You are free to ask the question. Uzaifa, you can go ahead, please. Uzaifa, is your mic open?
Yes, sir.
Please.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि जब कोर अगर हमने किसी बिल्डिंग या किसी स्ट्रक्चर या मेरा ताल्लुक डैम सेफ्टी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वापटा से है, तो मुझे हमने रिकमेंड करना होता है कि जी आप सपोज एक स्पिलवे है, तो स्पिलवे से हमने अगर कोर निकालना है तो सर वो किस जगह पे आप रिकमेंड करेंगे कि कौन सी जगह ऐसी है जहाँ से वो कोर निकाला जा सकता है?
देखें बेटा, सवाल तो आपने अच्छा पूछ लिया. Spillway structure is a special structure. When I was visiting Neelam Jhelum project, and we had a chance of having German engineers with us, who visited with us, and we were talking about the material used on the spillway. And they said, you know, they were using silica fume and polypropylene fibers and things like that. So during the discussion, we were in fact laughing. So it is, in Pakistan, the material engineers, specialist material engineers are not consulted. And there are very few material engineers who can give their advice. So the selection and proper execution is a must. Because once a spillway having huge concrete thickness and is kindly curved in nature, it will be difficult to remove a core. So it has to be done, in fact, something, non-destructive type or some other thing. But it is better that if you do look into the designs, look into the execution notes, maybe you come across with something. Now, if the spillway has some cracks, now your attention should be how to repair them. Instead of taking cores out, just follow the rituals of concreting works. You have got the quality control tests of concrete and steel also. So the design is also with you. So first of all, examine them and then consult some qualified material quality expert.
Sir, may I ask another question, please?
Oh, yes, please.
Sir,
मुझे आप नजर नहीं आ रहे.
जी जिलानी साहब बोले आप.
बोलें.
सर, टनल्स की रिपेयर के लिए हमें अक्सर कहा जाता है कि टनल्स के अंदर, ये पावर टनल्स की बात मैं कर रहा हूँ, उसके अंदर सर अंडर वाटर रिपेयर करने के लिए
जी
सर, पावर टनल्स की बात मैं कर रहा हूँ, पावर हाउस की टनल्स की, उसकी अंडर वाटर रिपेयर के लिए सर कोई मटेरियल्स?
Underwater repair, he's asking, sir, if for a power tunnel, if the repair is required under the water, so what kind of materials you will recommend?
Yes, thank you, Engineer Tahir Sultan Sahab. If you have to do repairs, you have to take anti-washout concrete. And that is usually a self-consolidating concrete, which is viscosity of which has been made very high, and that retains most of the constituents. So use anti-washout concrete.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
As you know, this transmission is broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube also. So we have some questions there. The question has come from Fawad Najam. He's asking, what measure you suggest to sensitize the building owners and local developers to conduct a routine health assessment of their structures, especially in context of high seismic hazard of the country?
Could you repeat? Fawad Najam, I think, is my student. He should be Dr. Fawad Najam.
Yeah, the name which is appearing is Fawad Najam only. So I will repeat the question.
Yes.
What measure you suggest to sensitize the building owners and local developers to conduct a routine health assessment of their structures, especially in the context of high seismic hazard of the country?
My question to my dear Fawad Najam would be that the quality control and the execution, the site engineers and design engineers, those should be very, very, very expert, and the role of site engineers becomes very useful. They should also consider a material engineer along with them, so that nothing happens which is against the safety of the public at large. Execution is normally, after designers, what designers do is they are very good in modeling, and they can do it. But, it is not the design only. Ultimately, the load has to come to the concrete, and concrete is a material which is composite material, and its behavior is different. In solid state, it behaves differently. In the transition stage, it behaves differently. In the fluid states, it behaves, and fluid mechanics laws are applicable. So some material engineer should be there. For example, when I inspected the recipe of this One Constitution Avenue Plaza, the cement content was specified as 580 kilogram per meter cube. Can you imagine? And then silica fume was used. Now this building will have definitely autogenous shrinkage in the service life. So the attendant, having the material engineer in the design team will greatly reduce the problems, especially in special application structures like the under high-rise buildings in earthquake-prone areas. And then this power tunnel question was also there. The material engineers are in fact not taken into consideration by the structural engineers, because they are afraid that if you take material engineers, then you have to pay something. A typical example, one student of mine is now a consulting engineer in Toronto, and they are building an underground tunnel for recovering something. And now they have they acquired the services of some material engineer, which revise the design covers, cover spacing, the type of reinforcements, and other materials. In fact, their entire design had to be revised by the material engineer. So in Pakistan, I don't think there is public awareness like the usefulness of a material engineer. You don't become material engineer very good until and unless you have played with them and you know all the tests which are necessary, and the selection of the materials, the quantity of materials, everything you put in concrete matters.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Any more questions? Please go ahead. I think we don't have any further questions. So I will again thank Dr. Saab for his effort to come online and deliver this lecture from the platform of Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers. And thank you very much, Dr. Saab. So now,
Thank you very much.
Dr. Saab, we have to present Sir, my pleasure. My pleasure, sir. You are most welcome, and you would be always welcome to our platform.
Thank you very much.
We have arranged a shield and a certificate for you that would be delivered either to your home address, on your home address, or to in your office in the university. Inshallah, next week that would be delivered, and the certificates, CPD certificates for all the participants, that they can collect still from the same office of Rizwan Mirza Consulting Engineers, 83M, Model Town Extension. And the phone number, in case you need to call at this office, you can call on 0345 424 3404. I repeat the address again, 83M, Model Town Extension, Lahore, and the telephone number is 0345 424 3404. So this was all about the technical lecture. And one announcement I have been asked by my staff to make another announcement. There are several certificates pending at our end. Nobody has come to collect them. So if my voice is being heard by those who have not collected their certificates yet, please do so. And otherwise, we can't hold them for a long time. So please cooperate and collect your certificates as soon as possible. For this lecture, the collection of certificates can start from Tuesday next week or the coming week. And inshallah, those would be ready by then. Regarding PSC, it is our memberships have reached to 155. Renewal notices, whosoever are getting, we request you that to get your memberships renewed. And as I said, that we need your assistance, we need your help, and that you can do so by becoming the member of PSCE, and those who are already the members, they can get their membership renewed for those members whose membership has expired. And you can also, if you want to join the committees, I have the committees which are working at the moment. They are listed out on our website, and we have also given the information which more committees are being formed, and those who are interested to serve the committees of PSCE, please send their names, and please rather name and show their intent by sending a mail to Mrs. Sadia Naveed on the email which is already notified on our website and on the Facebook page of the society. One more thing, that to date we have 8 magazines now published by the society and 10 newsletters. The last magazine which was published It contained an excellent work done by engineer Rizwan Mirza on the, this recent rains in Karachi. Do read that. Do read that topic written by Rizwan Mirza. It's on the published, already published, and is posted on our website. So the next lecture this month, we have another lecture. I'm again repeating, this month on 26th September, we have the second lecture. Normally we have one lecture a month, but this month we are having two lectures. This lecture is on 26th September, same time, and the speaker is Dr. Ali Sajid, and the topic is employability skills for engineers. It is a slightly different lecture, different from civil engineering a little bit, but it is related to civil engineering. So it is employability skills for engineers. The registration will be open from Monday for this lecture. So thank you very much, and for attending this this webinar, and I hope to see you again on 26th. So God bless you all. Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you very much.